I am Dr. J of the Jamanis Project, and today we are talking about holding the bow. Now, to follow through with our holistic approach towards how the violin is part of our body, we are going to consider the bow an extension of our arm. And so we want to start actually back behind my shoulder, back near my shoulder blade, making sure I am loose back there. If we notice how my arm is one unit and my shoulder is relaxed, it's not coming up, it's staying down. And then we come over here, oh, there it is, the bow. It's just another extension of my arm. I like to consider the bow hold as another joint in the arm. Like you have all these, you have the wrist, you have the elbow, you have the shoulder. Well, you have these fingers that are creating a joint, a conduit to the rest of the arm, which ends here. So when we play, we can have the sound go from our arm to the end of our arm. And that's why the bow hold is so important. So let's talk about it now, what it functions as, because you want to have an even, clean sound. That's kind of your primary function. Then there are a whole bunch of different strokes we can talk about. But a good way of looking at this bow hold is, how is your hand naturally? When I have my hand just hanging, that's how I want the bow. This is a little exercise that we can do. Just take that hand. Now I'm going to go a little more in detail, obviously, but that's just showing you my hand. I'm not doing this. It's a paw, not a claw. It's a paw, not a claw. Okay? Because a claw is gripping. We do not have a bow grip. We have a bow, let's call it a bow balance, or a bow fusion, even better yet. Okay? Now, as far as the workings of the bow, the center point of the bow is between your thumb and your second finger. That's kind of the crux of the hold. Now, if you notice, this is not a circle. And I'm not like that. I'm kind of like this. My thumb is opposite about what I'd say the first knuckle. So that's kind of the center point of the hold. And see, I really can't hold it that way, but I'm not planning to. Because what is holding up the bow? The string is holding up the bow now. Okay? So you see that's the center point. Now, another important finger. So we have the thumb and the second finger. That's the crux of the hold. Another important finger is well, they're all important. Let's put it that way. But the pinky is right on here, kind of on the side of the bow, just slightly, not quite on top, but on the side. And it has flexibility. You see how I'm able to curve it? That knuckle is giving into it. See? And this is a good exercise, and we'll go into that later. The pinky, I like to refer to it as the rudder, when to steer your bow in and out of the frog. It also absorbs a lot of the weight, and it can provide kind of a pivot from one string to the other. That's kind of a fun little exercise too. So far we're talking about those three fingers. Our thumb, second finger, and pinky. But as we go to the tip of the bow, my index finger, right there, has to take over in order to keep the weight even. And now my arm weight is actually right here in my index finger. So I can get just as strong a sound at the tip as I do at the frog. But I don't have the index finger at the frog because I'm using the weight of the arm, which is right on top of the bow. See? Now I'm not. I'm using the index finger. Now let's go a little bit more into the placement of the fingers. So you see, I'm going to draw, if you can see the way the line is, along from this end of the pinky to about the the big knuckle, maybe just below the big knuckle of the index finger. That's kind of how the shape of the hand is. And then you put your thumb right opposite where the second finger is. Now, interesting thing is this ring finger here, I haven't described yet. But I like to refer to Lucien Capet, who wrote a great treatise on the bow. The Art of the Bow, I believe it's called. I could be wrong on that. But I know he refers to this ring finger as your spiritual guide. It's on there to provide balance. So keep it on there, but its functionality is to provide balance for you. So now that we have all the fingers on the bow and understand the workings of each finger, but before I forget, I want to show you where I do place the thumb is at the end of the frog right here and at the beginning of the wrapping. There's a nice little notch where the thumb can be held. I like it there. Some people choke up on the bow. Some people hold it even further back. It just depends on how much weight you want to experience. The bow weighs 61 grams. Do you want to experience a little lighter effect for the bow, or do you want to experience even maybe a little heavier effect? But ideally, I think that's a standard spot. And then you put your second finger over it, and everything else folds on top. And then you want to make sure your arm is level. This is another thing. We can have a wonderful bow hold, but if we don't have the arm working with the bow, the bow hold's not going to do a lot of good for us. But now you see my arm and my elbow and my wrists are pretty much aligned. Going all the way to the tip. To the frog, my elbow's there. I don't lift it up or else my weight goes up there. In case, I might do that if I really want to make a soft sound. Down here, I'm going to make a rather noisy bow chain. I might do something like that. But if I have my elbow level, it'll be nice and clean, especially if I'm changing the pitch. But if I'm down here, that's a common thing. Okay, so the bow arm, keeping it one unit. And now, how do we master the bow hold? Because it's kind of it's unnatural to be loose. It's easy to grip. We're taught from a very early age, grip that pencil, grip feel how tight that baby's grip is. But ideally, we want it loose. So we can start. I got a handy dandy stick here from my yard. Take that. Or from the planter here, I got a pencil, even better yet. Whatever you have, you can simulate the bow hold and practice it with these little devices here. So, take my thumb, second finger. There. That's the bow hold. It's not like that, because I'm not even holding it. It's like that. That knuckle, the thumb. Okay, the thumb. This is another issue. Ideally, have your thumb loose. Yes, keep your thumb loose. Don't grip it. Don't grip it bent. Don't grip it straight. Just make sure it has flexibility. Ideally, for me, I like having my thumb bend, and I think of it as a shock absorber. Okay, so that's kind of my shock absorber right there. And then the other fingers. Okay, so let's do this for my pinky, because it's very important. This is a common thing, to have this straight pinky. It's a very common bow hold, that straight pinky, stiff. You're not going to have a loose sound. You have a stiff sound. So let's have the pinky like this, and I draw little circles. I'll take a piece of paper, draw a circle on the bottom. See how much mobility and control my rudder, which is my pinky, has. Okay, that's one. Another one is, well, I call this the cigar tap. I don't smoke cigars anymore, but this is kind of simulating how you would tap the ashes of a cigar with the index finger. That means it's nice and loose, and it just feels right. So you can feel that. You're not going to want to hook the finger around, because look what happens. If my bow's on the string and I hook it around, I'm lifting up the bow and I'm gripping the bow. So you want it just resting, and it might wrap around like that, but the contact is right. I don't know if you can see it. I'm going to push really hard, but right there. That's where the contact. But as I said, every finger is different. Every hand is different. So it might be slightly varied. Okay, so those exercises are very good. Another one, this one, to keep your knuckles nice and loose. You can kind of like maybe put your hand down and just tap the bow, or not the bow, but the pencil. Okay, just like that. The thing I don't really recommend is one where you crawl up the bow. I've seen that. I really don't see the reason, because that actually takes away from the connection that you have between these two fingers, and you really don't want that connection to be lost, because that's the center point, and you put the bow on. And this is the bow hold for a smooth, clean, solid sound. There are other strokes, and there's a long history of how they developed. Paganini's favorite strokes, had all the ricochet stuff. You still have to have a very loose hold on the bow. And you have to also, even though, let's say you're doing ricochet, when you're doing something like that, you still want to make sure that, okay, gravity is working. The bow's up, but I'm dropping it for that. And so those are various strokes: ricochet, spiccato, and staccato, and then maybe playing a little softer. If you want to change the sound, you're going to want to maybe pronate in the bow. By the way, one more thing. In addition to bow hold, I know we've just touched on bow stroke, but an important thing in your bow stroke is, because the frog is so heavy, we start the frog at the frog, which is this, for those of you who don't know, with the hair curved in, and as we go out, we flatten it so the sound can be even. And at the frog, your hair is curved, and since I curved the hair, look where my pinky is. It's actually on top of the bow in relationship to the gravitational pull. But if my pinky were actually on top of the bow and I'd pronate, it'd be like that. So that's why I say just a little bit to the side. Just a little bit. Okay, so I think that gives you a brief overview of holding the bow. Thank you for joining us.